Hey everyone, welcome back to an Extrovert Paints. So, this video is going to be a tutorial on how to make these tiny little soda cans right here that are crushed and thrown on the street, just tossed aside like trash, which is what they are. Now, for those of you who are getting into cyberpunk like me, or any dystopian future for that matter, doesn't have to be cyberpunk, it could be anything, any sort of wasteland setting, this is going to be something you're going to want to do, which is add trash and debris all over the place. Now, getting pieces of newspaper or magazine or posters or whatever is relatively easy because that just involves you printing something out on a printer from your computer screen, sizing it down correctly, folding it up, putting it on with some, putting white glue over it, and then you're set. You have a pretty convincing piece of paper litter on the ground. Soda cans are different because they don't really make, or haven't found a company anyway, that makes pre-crushed soda cans that you can just pop on a base, which is, by the way, for those of you out there who own basing related shops who manufacture your own resin stuff for miniature basing or whatever, that's really a market that you should look into getting into, because that doesn't exist. I mean, there's a couple of odds and ends places. I found these 28 millimeter soda cans, which are actually pretty well detailed given the fact that they're just, resin 28 millimeter cans, but they're too pristine. These would be for like, I would put these in like a building on like a counter or a table or in a parlor somewhere. I wouldn't really use these as litter. I mean, you could put it on the ground next to these and it would be pretty convincing, but you need crushed cans to make it look like it's been tossed aside and it doesn't still have liquid inside of it. So one thing that I found how to do is, and this took a little bit of thought on my part because there's no videos out there that I could find on how to make these myself, so I had to kind of improvise. I had these polystyrene rods lying around. Now, these are hollow on the inside. I can't tell you what the millimeter dims are on these because I got these and I threw away the packaging like an idiot. And I thought for sure I still had the packaging around, and I was going to be like, oh yeah, this is such and such. Yeah, but unfortunately I'm just looking again here just to make sure, but I definitely threw that out a long time ago because I wasn't anticipating buying more of these. But I can tell you they're about the size of what you would expect 28 millimeter bamboo to look like. That might not even make much sense to you guys, because if you haven't seen bamboo, you might not know what that would look like. But I can tell you that they are the exact diameter, or at least relatively close in scale to these soda cans, if you will. And that was kind of a bit of a serendipitous find on my part, because I had these sitting around the drawer and I was like, oh, I wonder if these would work, and lo and behold, they are the exact diameter. So, yay for me, I guess. Sorry for you guys out there, but if you are interested, I will research what I bought and try to put that in the video. If I can't, you're going to know, because there's not going to be anything that pops up here and says what it is. So my suggestion is to get it, just try to find some of the smaller versions, eyeball it, maybe bring a miniature with you when you're going to the store or whatever, to pick these up from your local hobby shop, and kind of eyeball it. And if you get the wrong one, you can always just, I'm sure you could use these for other projects. They're not really expensive. I think they're like, I got a set of like 5 or 6 of these for $1 or something like that. They're not really expensive. So again, I apologize for not having the information as part of this tutorial. I know that's a really big part of it, so please don't hate me, but I'm going to show you what to do once you figure out what size you need. Or if you're someone out there who is, has like a bunch of these lying around, don't know what to do with them, this is what you're going to want to do with them. So anyway, let me put this off to the side. I'll just bring this up a little bit too, so you guys can kind of see how I painted them up and that jazz. So, and now this base right here is from Inteno Cities. I think that's how you pronounce their workshop name. They're based out of the UK. They do a lot of high quality resin for Infinity and cyberpunk and wasteland stuff. It's pretty neat. And I got these for my cyberpunk miniatures. I haven't glued these down yet. They're still loose on here, but I just wanted to kind of show you some of the really, just give you a sense of scale when you're looking at these. This base, I think, is either a 50 or a 60 millimeter base. It's a monster base and I use it for Infinity motorbikes or motorcycles or however, I don't know what they're special Akira looking bikes that they have. And you can also use them for, like, 20 millimeter robot mechs that are within scale of the miniature itself. So, like, some of those big honking mechs that you use for, like, security or whatever. Anyway, so that's this is what we're gonna aim for at the end. And again, we're not going for super ultra fine detail. I did do a little bit of freehand on there. You can't see it right now because of all the washes I put over it. It is trash. So, all right, let's put that over to the side. Here's what you're gonna do. I have these to eyeball, but again, if you want, you could always, I guess I could recommend either like getting like a cell phone picture of like a can and shrinking it down on your computer or whatever, printing it out. Getting an idea of scale is really important. But really, we all have seen soda cans. You can probably eyeball it at this point. I'm just using these guys here as a guide because if I do use them, I want them to all be in scale. And you just kind of figure out, okay, that's where I need to make a line at. So what I like to do is I put it down next to it. I get a very sharp hobby knife. And I just line it up. I say that's about right. That might be a little bit more, but that's fine. You always want to go with a little bit longer than what you need because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to, oops, don't fly away. Going to be able to remove bits. And once you start crushing these cans, they will deform a little bit. So that's what we're going for. So again, just doing this. Okay. And that's another good reason to load up your painting area with paint bottles, because when you cut something like this and they go flying off into space, they'll bounce off the paint bottles and come back to you. So there you go. All right, so now we've got these tiny bits of polystyrene. What do we do with them now? Well, I have an old pair of knackered clippers from like, oh man, half a decade ago, maybe longer. So I tried to, when I first got these, I didn't know a thing about hobby related stuff because I was still relatively new to it. And I decided I was going to try to cut metal bars with these to make like rebarb or something like that with them, and that was a very bad mistake. The soft metal deformed and it dulled these out to the point where they're unusable for anything other than something like this. And this is what I would recommend you do. So you get your polystyrene bit here. Sorry, my hands are a little bit dirty. And yeah, we've all seen crushed cans before. We've all probably crushed a can or two in our lifetime. So you kind of know what you're going for in terms of how a can crinkles. And if you can't think of anything, look online. You'll find plenty of images of what that would look like. So when I crush a can, one of the first things that happens is the can will deform into a rough shape of my foot when I'm doing it, or if you use a hand, it'll conform into your hand. Yeah, so if you're stepping on the long portion here, you want to think about that foot impression, what it would do to the can. One thing that tends to happen that I've noticed is if you sometimes you'll get a little bit of a corner of a can, and that edge will crush, but the other edge, or like the bottom or the top of the can will still stay round while the other one flattens out. So let's look at doing something like that. So one thing I recommend doing is being very, very careful that you don't hurt yourself. But you can use pliers too. If you have like really tiny pliers, you can do this too. But try to go at an angle. So you see I've got this a little bit angled here. And then I will come down like so. All right. And you could actually just stop right there if you wanted to. Let me see if I can get that in focus a little bit for you. You could stop right there. I mean, that's perfectly acceptable crushed can, and not every can is going to be identical. Or if you're like me and you're ultra, like, you want to be as realistic as possible, sometimes what I'll do is I'll even go in there, I'll press down a little bit harder than I should without actually cutting through the polystyrene, and then just give it a little bit of a bend. So now we have, a almost rounded edge on one end. And what I'll do is I'll go in usually just round that out a little bit more so it maintains that round shape on that end. And this end, I'll crush it a little bit more, like so, okay? And there is our can. Now, obviously, this needs a lot more work yet. And you're probably looking at this going, well, what about these holes in the top and the bottom? Because this is, after all, a hollow polystyrene rod. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's do one more. So we have this one here, going in from a slightly different angle this time. Again, watch those fingers. You don't want to get pinched. Again, if you give it a little bit of a bend, it does also tend to help with the selling that this is a can. Only when we can do that is to just put it on the table and press down on one end. Again, being careful not to completely destroy the polystyrene in the process. You do, after all, want to be able to paint this up. So there we go. That's that. And let's round up this side here. Hopefully I'm still on camera. Sorry if I go out of focus a little bit. I'm trying a new camera angle to see if I can get this to work. Okay, so there we go. Those are our two crushed cans. Now, they're still a little bit on the longer side. If you can see here, they're just a little bit, like maybe half a mil, a little bit too long for what these are for. But that's okay, because not every can is going to have the same length. Sometimes you get, you know, energy drink cans, and they tend to be a little bit longer than your standard soda can. You can get miniature cans, you can get longer cans. Cans come in all various sizes, so it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Again, we're just eyeballing it here, and that's what we're doing. So the next step, how to get these bits filled in on the end, because obviously they are still hollow. We need to fill those in. At the same time, we want to find a way to make sure that it keeps the shape that it's in. Super glue is your friend in this case, and I highly recommend that you do this in a ventilated area. Although if you don't, just try to not spray stuff right in your face, because you don't want to be breathing in toxic fumes. What I have done is you can even use some of your polystyrene rod if you wanted to. So let's do that. Let's keep using the tools that we have in front of us and do that. So let's just cut a piece like that. Yay big. Put this on the camera here so you can see. Get some, where's this stuff at? Get some greens, no, not green stuff. Get some teacher's tack is what I'm looking for. I know I have some around here. What did I do with it? Here it is. All right, teacher's tack, also quite useful in a lot of different ways. Also known as blue stuff or blue tack. Blue tack, not blue stuff. That's something else. All right, so pop a dollop of it on the end of yay thing. And I will put it on there like so. Grab your super glue. I'm using gap filling super glue. This is Bob Smith Industries. And hopefully I can get this on camera. What I'm doing here is putting a dollop on the top. Now, it'll help seep in a little bit, and then what you want to do is grab your Instacure, this stuff right here, go away from your face, spray it on the can. Now, what this is doing is two things. At the first time, it's filling in those gaps, so it's helping maintain the shape, and it's also sealing up that hole. And it's hard to see here because it dries clear, right? So you're not going to be able to see it 100%. But then we're just going to do the other side as soon as it dries. Okay. And actually, it has a little bit already because it went through the thing when you first did it. And then we're just going to come in here again and just pull off the excess. My finger, spray it again off to the side, and that's one down. So that's that. And then we'll do the other one. Okay. It's okay if it bulges a little bit. Again, the whole point of this is to replicate what happens to a can when it's crushed. Not every can is going to have the same reaction to being stepped on or being discarded or tossed aside or whatever. And one of the really good things about super glue is when you spray it with Instacure, it kind of retracts in on itself. And that does tend to create some very interesting dimpling in the super glue. So it does tend to look a little bit like crushed aluminum, incidentally. Now, once that's all done, you can put your super glue away, and I'm doing a couple of these just to show you how to do it. I'm not really, I really want to kind of get into a point where I'm making like a whole stack of these, like, you know, 20 or 30 of them to put on different various parts of my bases and on my terrain or whatever. But again, to show you what's going on. Now, what I did here is off the side, before I started filming, I went in and basically put this on another stick. You can see, this is one I've already done off camera, already been crushed, and I just put a primer coat on it of Vallejo surface primer. I think this is olive drab, because I don't have black at the moment. I used all my black up, so olive drab, it works fine. Again, the intent here is just to get a layer of primer on there. You can use an airbrush. I don't have an airbrush because I'm poor. And let's see, once you get one side done, you can pop that off, turn it around. You can see I still have a little bit of polystyrene here showing through. Now, it looks like the super glue didn't go all the way to filling the top. That's okay, because again, we're going to be painting over that. We just want to make sure that it looks like a can. And sometimes when you crush a can, things happen. So again, not trying to go for you know, golden demon awards here. We're just going for quick and easy 28mm cans for our basing and terrain needs. So once you got that figured out, again, putting primer on is a really good way to see all the contours and to see what the can looks like once you get paint on it, because at this stage now is where it starts to come to life. So once we let that dry, I recommend getting two sorts of metallic silver paint for this. Army Painter's plate mail metal for the base of the aluminum color, and then Vallejo Air's steel for the highlighting of that aluminum. And when you're done, it's going to look really good. You can also get, I think they make like, I think Vallejo actually makes an aluminum color in metallics. I don't have it. These are the colors that I use, and I think it looks pretty good once it's all said and done. What I do from this point is after the primer layer dries, I use silver gray from Vallejo, and I paint over the entirety of the can, because I just wanted to bring up the color a little bit. Makes it easier to put on the metallics, and it's an easy color to paint over with the colors that you're going to make for the label. So again, in camera hopefully, and if it's not in focus, again, I apologize. It's in focus for me when I'm looking at it. I'm not sure how it's going to translate for you guys. I'm sorry. So anyway, once you get the first layer on there. Try not to let it pool if you can. Let that dry. And I'm not really thinning my paint at this point. I'm just putting it, kind of just glooping it on because, again, not Golden Demon. It's way too small for any fine detail work, so it doesn't really matter if you get it a little bit dirty. And actually, while that's drying, I will prime up the other two so that you have something else to look at besides just watching paint dry on my screen, because everyone loves doing that, as we all know. And get some primer on there. And now you can see here a little bit easier how, and this is a thinned layer a little bit, so you can still see where the hole was for the can, but that super glue really fills that in really nicely. So there's no gaping hole at the end now, which is what you want. You want a nice filled in can. And that's one down. And again, the primer is just to help so that you can put paint down without worrying about it stripping off later. This is good for a second coat. I would say 2 coats is pretty good because, again, this is not going to be the color we end up with. It's just the color we are using for the time being. All right, so once you get this coat on, the next thing you want to do is put the plate mail along the rims of the soda can, where you would normally see it on a soda can, bottom and top. Paint the tops with that silver as well. And then I would say about 80% of the surface around it is going to end up being your label. So you can use labels that we all know and love, or you can make up your own label. You can use any colors you want. I think one of these I'm going to paint in a purple with a purple label on it, another one with a blue since I've already got a red and a green. And then I'll do others with other, other colors as well. Just again, not every soda can is going to be the same. So that's what we got to remember, is that we're talking about variety, and we want to really have a really colorful trash pile, if you will, and that'll help accentuate all the work that we put in on our miniature painting. So again, I'm not going to go into the steps of painting up cans because that's really up to you guys how you want to paint them up, but this is how I painted them up, and I'm very happy with how these have all turned out on here. I hope this has been a useful video for you. Again, I was looking around for a while for a tutorial video. I didn't find one, and I follow the Rocky's War Room school of thought, which is if you can't find it, then just make one yourself, because chances are someone else is out there looking for the exact same thing that you are and being disappointed in not finding something. So this is how I make my cans. In the comments below, feel free to leave your thoughts on how you would do it. I'm always up for suggestions. There's probably a better way to do this that I don't know about, but this is relatively easy, and it only takes a few minutes to make a can look like a can. Polystyrene look like a can. Anyway, that's it, guys, for me today. Looking forward to more cyberpunk videos from me coming forward in the next couple of days. Take care.